Let's now handle the event of users hovering over our stars. So basically, the functionality that we're looking for is this one. So whenever we hover over these stars, we get like a temporary rating here, exactly with the number of stars that are currently being hovered. So here we have 9, here we have 3, but it is completely independent from the rating that is actually set right now. So the rating is set to 5, but again, whenever we hover over some other number of stars, then that temporarily changes to that rating. All right, so what that means is that now we need a brand new piece of state to basically store that temporary rating. And again, that makes sense because something should happen on the screen, so the component should re-render whenever there is some hover event. That's how we then get that new rating in there. So let's say, for example, temp rating, which stands for temporary, and then set temp rating. And we start at 0, and of course the rating itself should also start at 0. All right. Now, in order to actually handle that hover event, let's go down here onto our star, so into our star component, and then where we handle the click is where we also handle the hover. Now, there's not really a hover event, but instead we have on mouse enter. So let's just do some console.log here for now. So that's one of them. And then we have mouse leave. So we basically need to handle these two separately. Okay, just so that we can quickly see. So I entered basically this element and then it said enter. And immediately afterwards, it said leave. So let's see again. And indeed, each time that we enter or leave, well, we get our log down there. And so now all we have to do is to update that temp rating state that we just created in each of these situations. So let's pass in then two handler functions here into the star, just like we did for the onRate. So let's call this one here on hover in, and the prop name here is different again from the event name, just to avoid some confusion here. So we could also call this prop on mouse enter again, but then it might be a bit confusing and you might think that the event is actually handled right here on the star component, which of course is not possible. So the event always needs to be handled on a JSX element itself. So like an HTML element, such as a span. Okay, and now all we have to do here is to basically set the temp rating to the rating of the current star. So that's again I plus 1, right? And then on hover out, we set it back to the initial value. So temp rating back to 0. So here we need to change the name. So of course this is with an uppercase R. And now all we need to do is to accept these two props here and wire everything together. So on hover in, on hover out. All right. And so then here we of course want to now call these functions. And here on hover out. And now finally we need to actually display this rating in the UI. So you see here right now that it's still yellow, which means that we haven't used it anywhere. So let's for now replace this rating with the temp rating. And then let's see. And yeah, that's already working. So see how that value was there. Shortly, we had the 3, then here the 4, the 5, and so on and so forth. So that's working great. The only part that is not working is that the stars are not getting full. And so let's quickly fix that here inside this condition here. So here we can say that if there is a temp rating, so if there is a temporary rating, then do the same thing, but with that temp rating. So then temp rating greater or equal I plus 1. But if not, well, then we just do what we had before. And so this should fix that. And yeah, beautiful. So that works great. And if we click here, well, then the number disappears, but the stars stay the same. And so that's because now we have the rating set. And then so here in this full prop, we enter the second branch, which then, just like before, sets these 4 stars here to full. Now all we have to do here is to place another OR here and say, basically, if there is no temp rating, then display the current rating. And if that also doesn't exist, well, then we get the empty string. So indeed, we now get 4. If we click again, we get 5. But as we hover, we get the temporary rating. So just like we wanted, and just like this component here works as well. So this looks really nice, really real world, actually. And it wasn't that much work. All we had to do is some tricks with these 2 rating states and then handling all of these different events. So basically handling the click, the mouse enter, and the mouse leave. And the result, if you ask me, is even a bit magical here. So I really, really like this effect that we created here. Okay, and so that's the main functionality already implemented. But now let's make the component really, really flexible by allowing a couple of props. So we will learn all about that in the next lecture, and then we will come back here and create the API, basically, of this component.